Hello everyone, my name's Cliff and welcome back to my channel. This is Cliff's Dark Gems. Today we're going to be counting down my top 10 favourite 90s horror movies of all time. And this includes some excellent book to movie adaptations. Stay tuned. Okay everyone, before we get going, a lot of people see the 90s as not the best decade of horror filmmaking. I beg to differ. I think I've actually probably watched more movies from the 90s, okay, in the 2000s as well, than any other decade, but I think there are some real gems hidden in the 90s. But before we begin, I'd like to go through some special mentions very quickly. Not going to spend much time on them at all, and let's start off with Stir of Echoes, which is an awesome supernatural horror thriller about a man who goes under hypnosis and basically develops his power of being able to communicate with the undead or with the deceased, and the catch is his son is able to do that as well. Now this is a terrifying horror. Thoroughly enjoyable and very underrated. Next up we have Seven. Now this could easily have been on my list, but yeah, I think I kind of thought about it for the last minute, but it's still an incredibly terrifying horror, even though some people would call it more like a suspense. And it's about this depraved serial killer who kills 7 victims based on the 7 deadly sins. And he does it in the most disturbing, gruesome, graphic way ever. And there's a real twist at the end, and right at the end, oh my word, wow, what an ending. That's all I'll say about that. Next we have Misery, another one that would be probably on most people's lists. For me, Kathy Bates stole the show, and it's about a writer who has an accident and he finds himself in the care of not so much his greatest fan, but a very psychotic fan who does things to him. And yeah, this movie is gripping and horrifying, and Kathy Bates gives the performance of a lifetime as far as I'm concerned in this movie. Okay, the last special mention is Candyman, and that is the original and not the remake. And this is a very interesting story based on a short story by Clive Barker called The Forbidden. It takes place in a very unique setting with a very memorable villain, and yeah, it's just an excellent story and one of, I think, Clive Barker's best book to movie adaptations. Okay, at number 10 we have first of 2 Japanese entries, and this is Audition. This is based on a novel written by, I'm going to read this because I don't want to get it wrong, Ryu Murakami, I think. And this is the kind of movie that you want to go in blind, not knowing what happens, especially at the end. It is about a widower, a Japanese man, who holds his fake auditions for a fake production so that he can find a girlfriend and go out with this young, beautiful girl. Now he manages to do that. They go out, they have dinner together, they get up to all sorts of romantic stuff together, and for the first 2/3 of this book, maybe even longer, it seems like it's more like a rom-com or a psychological sort of drama than a horror. In fact, you'll be watching it and it's, wow, what am I really watching here? And then suddenly it goes downhill very quickly. There are certain scenes that just set it off, and it becomes pretty damn terrifying and very gross and visceral, and it's got serious shock value towards the end. You'll never think of the sound kitty. You'll never think of that sound the same way again. That is Audition. Okay, in something completely different, in 9th position we have Evil Dead 3 Army of Darkness. Now, as we go through this list, you might realize that there are a couple of really off the rail kind of movies that I've chosen, because this is my list and these are movies that I found particularly entertaining. So there might be some of your favorites not on here, but this third installment of the Evil Dead series is not exactly horror, but it is more comedy horror, and I would say the comedy is so freaking awesome. It's still gross, but it's still very, very entertaining, and that's why it's on this list. Now Ash, you know the hero Ash from Evil Dead 1 and 2, played by the awesome Bruce Campbell. It's probably one of my favorite heroes ever. And he finds himself in 13th century Europe, and he's got to deal with the hordes of the undead, as well as the locals who take him and basically hold him captive. Now he has to win the locals over in some kind of way, and this leads to all sorts of craziness. Believe me, it's hysterical. And he has to find this book called the Necronomicon, that's right, and it's called the Book of the Dead, and that is the only way he's going to get home. Now, I love the Evil Dead series, but this particular movie, it's just got a soft spot because it is just so hysterically crazy, off the wall, wild fun and gory, and yeah, I absolutely love Ash as a hero, and if you haven't seen it, I'd recommend picking it up. That's Army of Darkness, Evil Dead 3. Okay, in 8th position we have another completely off the wall choice, and this is underrated cult classic, Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight. Now, the Tales from the Crypt, I'm sure you all know, are TV series, but they also, the Crypt Keeper also presents some movies as well, and I think this is the best one of them. And basically it's got Billy Zane. What more can I say? It's got Billy Zane in the role of his lifetime. I know he was in The Mummy, but sorry, that's got nothing on this. And he plays this sort of demonic collector, and he's chasing this mysterious man. It's a car chase, it's a car crash, and the mysterious man takes refuge in this hotel where there's all these other people, and by the time the Demon Knight arrives, did I just call him the Demon Knight? Yes, the collector, the Demon Knight. And by the time he arrives, all hell breaks loose. And it is B-movie, gory, over-the-top demon fun. And some of the special effects and oh my word, it is just so entertaining. And Billy Zane standing there with his arms there with all these demons and summoning him up and putting his hand over them, getting ready to attack. It's really, really just a fun, crazy, great movie. And I know that critics panned it. Critics panned a couple of movies on this list. I'm going to go through one or two more. But don't worry, I have got some classics on here. I've got some good movies on here as well. But if you're not really looking for Oscar material and you just want a good time, Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight. If you've never heard of it, pick it up. Okay, in 7th position we actually have a 3-part miniseries, but I just had to put it on this list because it is so freaking awesome. It's written by Stephen King, and I'm dying to get my hand on the screenplay, and it's called Storm of the Century. Now, if you've not heard of this, it might have gone under the radar. It's about a small town, basically cut off from the mainland. It's an island town, and you know, well, Stephen King does small towns and small town characters, and they've got a problem. They've got this menacing, mysterious visitor, and yeah, he doesn't seem quite human, and he's not going to go away until they give him what he wants. And at the same time, there is the worst storm ever about to descend on this town and making it a living hell. And really, as the body count rises, as the tension rises, it is just such a superb miniseries. And I've heard critics say that it is too long. I say that's rubbish. I say that yes, there's good character development, there's good building of suspense, but I wouldn't call it too long. There's a big cast of characters, and in typical Stephen King fashion, he really puts you through the ringer with this one. And the ending is absolutely bone-chilling, and It's about the moral choices that we have to make, sometimes collectively. You know, what do we do for the greater good? I'm not going to say anything else in terms of spoilers, but this is a fantastic movie with an awesome criminal, with that cane of his, and he's got this wolf's head on a cane. If you haven't seen this, get hold of it. I would love to get hold of the screenplay, as I say, because that would really fit in well with my Stephen King collection. But Storm of the Century, look it up. Okay, next up we have number 6, and another underrated and what has become a cult classic, and that is Event Horizon, which I mentioned before in a previous video. And in fact, if you go to Rotten Tomatoes, if you go there, you'll see there's something like a 30% differential between how the audience felt about this movie and how the Rotten Tomato critics felt about this movie. I think I gave it something like 33%. I think the audience was more like 65%. Okay, that's still not up there, but for many people this is a favorite, and it's awesome. It's basically about the spaceship that has a very specialized spaceship that vanishes and reappears again, and it sends out a distress signal, help me, in Latin. And this other spaceship goes to its rescue, or to find out if there are any survivors, and it damages its craft on the way, and so they've got no choice but to enter the Event Horizon. And they find that there is no one there, human anyway, and they find the ship's log, and it wasn't save me, it was save yourselves from hell. And there is some horrific imagery and horrific gore and scares in this movie. It is very, very complicated, and I know that some critics said that the acting wasn't the best. I personally didn't have a problem with it. I actually went along with this movie. I was thrilled. It was an awesome movie. And I'm not going to tell you anything more about the ship and its supposed occupant or occupants, but don't let the critics fool you on this one. Give it a go and make your own mind up. That is Event Horizon. In 5th position we have my favorite Japanese horror movie ever. That is Ring-U. And I can tell you that this is better than the American version. It is based on a novel written by Koji Suzuki. I've just actually read Koji Suzuki Dark Water, which I wasn't too impressed with. But if this movie is anything to go with, I should try and track down her novel as well. As everyone probably knows, it's based on a cursed videotape, a VHS tape, that if you watch it, you're going to get a phone call saying that you will die in 7 days. Now, unfortunately for this reporter, this investigative reporter, she watches it, and even more unfortunate that her son watches it too. So what we have now is a race against time to try and find the origin of this evil and to save her son's life in particular. And this is a creepy, terrifying movie. It is freaking awesome. There are some scenes, I don't want to give too spoilers, but there's one involving a television set. It'll stay with you for a long time. So this is most definitely worth a watch. Give it your time. That's Koji Suzuki, Ring-U. Well, not so much the book, but the movie, Ring-U. In 4th position we have From Dusk Till Dawn. Now this is a crazy genre buster. It's bloody, it's gory, exciting, and it's from the imagination of probably my favorite director of all time, and that is Quentin Tarantino. Okay, Tarantino wrote the screenplay for this, and Robert Rodriguez, his buddy, who collaborates him with on a lot of stuff, actually directed this particular movie. Now it's a very interesting movie in the sense that it's almost like 2 separate movies, some people would say. Is that in the first one it's a crime thriller where these 2 convicts basically commit a crime, and they run off and kidnap a family, take a family hostage. They go across the Mexican border, and they have to wait it out in this bar called, wait for it, the Titty Twister. And now in this bar they're going to wait it out, and the next morning the whole thing will be okay. Whew. then in the bar. Okay, but before everything shit hits a fan, there is a charming dance by Salma Hayek, with a huge snake around her shoulders, and we also pay homage in that one scene to one of Quentin Tarantino's foot fetishes. He's got a thing about feet and toes, so that's actually quite a funny scene. But once the dance ends, all hell breaks loose. And I'm not going to say anything more. It's just really, really gory fun that these people have to survive, and they come up with all sorts of ways in which they survive. It's witty, it's hilarious, and it's actually very, very well acted. Actors did a brilliant job in here. I can't remember all the main parts, but it's really well worth your time. This is a great, great movie. I love all Tarantino, and this isn't exactly my favorite, but it's right up there. That is From Dusk Till Dawn. Okay, in third position we have Francis Coppola's Dracula. It is full of horror, humour, and it is in parts really terrifying, but it's just such a feast for the senses. It's just such a gorgeous movie, and it does all this while still retaining the feel of the original novel by Bram Stoker. It just has that gothic feel, but just brought to life on a grander scale. I thoroughly enjoy Gary Oldman. I think he steals the show. His portrayal of Dracula, both young and old, is just absolutely incredible. Well, let's just briefly talk about the story for those who don't know. Okay, so Count Dracula, I don't know if it was thousands and thousands of years ago, he basically goes off to war. I think it's with the Turks, if I'm correct. And he's victorious, and the Turks basically shoot a message into the top of the castle where it's his bride-to-be, the love of his life, and the note says that he has fallen in battle. So what does she do? In absolute despair, she throws herself out of the castle to her death. When Count Dracula returns and finds this out, he loses it, and he renounces God, and he goes absolutely ballistic, and he turns into this creature that needs blood to survive and is immortal. Now we fast forward to Victorian London, and Jonathan Harker goes to Dracula on business, goes to the castle. This whole sequence is actually pretty awesome, and Dracula invites him into his home. I can't remember what he says, but that's one of my favorite parts of the whole movie. Then he's got a picture of his fiancée Mia on a thing on his chest, and Dracula sees this and immediately yearns for this woman because she looks exactly like his long lost love. And when he heads back to London, he's going to find her. It's all sorts of other stuff happening. I'm not going to go into any more detail, but this is a gorgeous movie, and as I say, it's a feast for the senses. It's exciting, it's thrilling, it's pretty dark at times, but there's enough sort of brevity and light to in between the darkness to just make this a stunning movie. Dracula. Okay, next up is a movie that's going to be a big surprise to all of you probably, but I am shocked and horrified that this movie has not been spoken about more. And that is Jacob's Ladder with Tim Robbins. Now, this is a haunting story about a Vietnam vet who is basically going a little crazy. He's having these haunting visions, and he gets these flashbacks of his young son who died, and of his experiences in the Vietnam War. And now he's convinced that there's a government conspiracy about something that happened in Vietnam. And just his life in this particular movie is slowly unraveling. He's full of grief, he's full of pain, he's haunted, he is slowly going absolutely mad. And it's one of the most devastating endings to a movie that I've seen. It just hit me like an absolute brick. It's one of those endings where you don't see coming. You just don't. Well, I did. Maybe you'll see it, but it really just hit me so hard, and it was so like heartbreaking in a way. It kind of made me quite emotional. But yeah, you're missing out if you haven't seen Jacob's Ladder. You're missing out on a powerful movie that, as I said, how people don't know about this movie is beyond me. I don't get it. This is just a crazy good movie. You have to go see it, Jacob's Ladder. Okay, for those of you that know me, you'll know that there's no surprise what number 1 is here, and that is The Silence of the Lambs. Possibly in my 1 or 2 favourite movies of all time. I'm still sort of juggling that, horror movies of all time. And really based on Thomas Harris's awesome novels. He's done, I think, 3 novels, but Red Dragon and Hannibal. But this is absolutely the best horror movie. It's just perfect. Just to say that it won, just something interesting about it, it won 5 Oscars. I think it was in 1991. 5 of the main Oscars. Best Picture, Best Actor, Anthony Hopkins, Best Actress, Jodie Foster, and the other 2 I can't remember. But that's one of only 3 movies in history that have managed those 5 big 5. And it's also the only horror movie. And I'm still going to say it's a horror movie. People call it a psychological thriller. No, it's a horror movie. And it's the only horror movie that has ever won an Oscar for Best Picture. And really, let's talk about it. It's about a serial killer behind bars, Hannibal the Cannibal Lecter. And we've got a rookie trainee FBI agent, Jodie Foster, who is told to go and get some information from Hannibal the Cannibal in order to try and track down another serial killer that is on the loose. And that is basically going to be kind of difficult, because Hannibal is not going to just give his information away freely. He wants to get inside the head of this would-be FBI agent, and this is something that he slowly does. But he almost becomes her mentor, and she trusts him. He sort of trusts her, but never forget what he is. He's a cannibal. He's an absolute psycho mad. And I don't know what to say about this movie. If you haven't seen it, what are you waiting for? It is just absolutely brilliant on every level. The acting is superb. The other killer, Buffalo Bill, who actually hunts down these women for their... I'm actually not going to give spoilers away. If you haven't seen it, you need to watch this movie. It's truly horrifying, truly terrifying, and I'm sure you'll agree with me once you've seen it that it'll top one of your favourite movies of all time list as well. Okay everyone, that's my list. As you can see, it's a little bit chilly here tonight, so I'm wearing a top for the first time. Weather's taking a turn, but never mind. That's my list of top 10 horror movies from the 90s. What did you think? What do you think of my choices? Which movies would you have added there? And remember, as I always say, although I've never had any problems, that this list is subjective, it's my opinion, but just let me know what you think in the comments down below. And for everyone, please like and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, keep those pages turning, keep watching that horror, and cheers.